This arid land in northeastern Utah was once a verdant jungle of tropical forests and marshes. Then, dinosaurs dominated the land. The earth changed. The dinosaurs became extinct, and new life forms evolved. Change continues to this day. But now man seeks to manage the land and use it wisely. Today, we'll learn about one of these men, a U.S. Forest Service ranger, as Discovery visits the land of the Flaming Gorge. Discovery 71, the award-winning program for young people with Virginia Gibson and Bill Owen.
Hi, and welcome to Discovery. Today we're in the Ashleigh National Forest in the northeastern corner of Utah, near where it borders Colorado on the east and Wyoming on the north. We're in the midst of some of America's most beautiful scenery.
The entire area is set on a high plateau dominated by the Uinta Mountains, the highest in Utah, and the only major mountain range in the United States lying east and west. The winding Green River has etched itself deeply into the mountains. Perhaps the most striking single feature of the region is a brilliant Red River Canyon. Major John Wesley Powell named the canyon Flaming Gorge when he was exploring the river a century ago. But the moods of the Uintas and the Green River are as varied as the colors of the rainbow. When the river has finally run its course in the mountains, it charges through Split Mountain Gorge and becomes a gentler stream, wending its way through the otherwise arid Uinta Basin and south, where it joins the Colorado River.
It's hard to envision the complex changes which this vast landscape has undergone. Many times it has been covered and recovered by a sea. Between these marine periods, through a process called uplift, land formations were created. At times, the land was covered with tropical vegetation and marshes. It was in one of these periods, about 200 million years ago, that the first dinosaurs, Greek for terrible lizard, appeared. Here are some early dinosaurs as pictured by famed paleontologist and painter Ernest Unterman Sr. As plant life increased, vegetarians like Brontosaurus appeared and became the prey of meat eaters like Allosaurus. Then, as now, animals primarily ate either meat or plants to survive. All these animals were huge, but the most fearsome of all, Tyrannosaurus Rex, was truly the king of his jungle domain. His name means Tyrant King Lizard, and he weighed 20 tons.
What man knows about dinosaurs has been learned through the study of fossils. The world's richest known deposit of dinosaur fossils is to be found here at the quarry of the Dinosaur National Monument, not far from Flaming Gorge.
It said downstairs that they've only found one full animal here. These are just bones from different animals.
Geez, there must have been a lot of dead animals.
There's a lot of vertebrates, isn't there, in them like this?
You see, these are what the other animals didn't eat, and so they're just kind of scattered. But it's...
Apparently, this graveyard was formed when dead dinosaurs were washed together in a riverbed. Many mountable skeletons have been removed and placed in museums since the quarry was discovered in 1909.
Look how big he must have been. How big would he be, Dave?
But these bones are simply being uncovered and left in place so that future generations can see them just as they were found. Both the peaceful vegetarians and their mortal enemies, the flesh eaters, are here. Their bones entangled for all eternity.
Now there's a whole bunch down there.
And there's probably more that they've got to uncover yet.
Come on, we got to get going.
I think that
Come on.
would be little.
Yeah. Come on.
Bob Glenn and his family are new to the Flaming Gorge country. Bob's a U.S. Forest Service ranger, transferred here recently by the government from Ely, Nevada. Bob, his wife Dorothy, and their children, Linda, who is 11, Alan, 9, and David, who is 5 years old, are getting one of their first looks at the area where they'll be living. Man needs this land for many purposes today. This means he must manage its use, and that's a good part of the job of being a forest ranger.
This is the kind of big country which excites career men in the Forest Service. All the challenges are here: large recreation, timber, grazing lands, valuable watersheds, fish and wildlife, and many others. Of course, there are what some might call drawbacks to my job, too. When you decide on a career in this outfit, at least at the beginning, you have to be prepared to move every few years. Moving poses some hardships for a family: the changing of schools, making of new friends, and getting reoriented in general. We like to think of it as kind of an adventure. All this has its compensations, too. After all, how many of us in the United States get to live in beautiful country like this? Most of them seek out areas like Flaming Gorge for their vacations, but we live here all year.
More than 1 million people visit the area around Flaming Gorge Dam each year. The men who look after these visitors and the men who run the dam live in the nearby town of Dutch John, Utah. Bob Glenn has his district headquarters there.
We'll follow Bob on one of his first days on his new job. We'll take a walk on a nature trail and find out about a noisy but harmless gun used to help manage wildlife. And we'll do that in just a minute. That's Dutch John down there, a government town named for an old horse trader who came to this area in the early days. The town was built for the construction of Flaming Gorge Dam in 1959. Now it's home to the men of the Bureau of Reclamation who run the dam and the men of the Forest Service who manage the national recreation area around it.
Bob Glenn has become the district ranger for this part of the Ashleigh National Forest. He works with a staff of conservation experts. Today, he and a timber expert, Darrell Johnson, are off to look into a new potential danger to many of the trees in the district. Forest fires are not the only threat to timberlands. Here the menace is an insect, the mountain pine beetle. Darrell Johnson shows his new boss a recent infestation.
There's one.
But pine trees and mountain pine beetles are just one of the new district ranger's many concerns.
I'm afraid that most people think that all we forest rangers work with are trees. But actually, on this district, for instance, we have semi-desert grazing lands, a huge 91-mile-long lake backed up by a dam, as well as small alpine lakes, dense forests, and many other management challenges. So what we really have to think about is what is the best use for all these different types of land. I like to say that all this variety of land types and uses gives us a lot of opportunities. One of the main opportunities is in the field of outdoor recreation. More and more Americans are wanting to get out and enjoy their national forests and parks. But when they get there, they often want to find all the comforts of home, including flush plumbing. And we're glad to provide it where we can, and it fits into the scheme of things. We're dealing with a new breed of urban camper, and since he's coming in such numbers now, we are beginning to get a threat from human pollution, just as you have in the cities. We must take special care to prevent this, especially as more and more people flock to these areas.
That lake down there is part of the Flaming Gorge Reservoir, which winds its way around the old Green River canyons and north into Wyoming. The reservoir is stocked with fish, and during the season, anglers catch about 600,000 rainbow and brown trout. Right now, Bob Glenn is showing Ginny another feature of this area, a nature trail, which tests visitors' understanding of plants and wildlife.
This mountain mahogany tree only has leaves on the very top. Why is that?
Well, this indicates that many years ago there was an overpopulation of deer, and they browsed the vegetation up till it was out of reach. And now you can see down there where the new vegetation is starting to come back. This is available to the deer and they can reach it, and also indicates that the deer population is more in balance with the forage.
And the tree will grow again?
Except for the dead branches, yes. It will sprout at the bottom.
Bob, what are these patches of color on the rock?
They are called lichens. And as they grow through their life process, they chemically dissolve the surface of the rock.
You mean they'll actually help break the rock into smaller pieces?
Well, yes, they are the first plant in the beginning of soil to help make soil.
Steve Radozavich is an old-timer here in the Flaming Gorge country. He's one of the state game wardens in Bob Glenn's Forest Service district.
How big is the mahogany stand in this area, Steve?
It's pretty predominant in this area.
Bob and Steve will be working closely at managing the game in the area.
There's a tag.
The Fish and Game Department and Forest Service have tagged the various types of important grazing plants in a controlled area. By checking them periodically, it can be learned whether the area is being grazed too heavily by deer, antelope, and other wildlife.
2, 5, and a 5, and a 5, and a 1, and a 1. That's all on this one. Looks like we've got some real good growth this year.
Yeah, we've had some tough use here, though, in the past.
Yeah, we've had some pretty severe winters in here.
This range is called Antelope Flat. Cattle and sheep graze here along with deer, antelope, and elk. The sheep herders here live a life isolated from the world most Americans know. Most of these men are Basques from Spain, and for as long as 6 months at a time, this is their home, with only their dogs, horses, and sheep for company.
Hello, Joe.
Hello.
Meet the new ranger here, Mr.
Joe,
Bob Glenn.
nice to meet you.
Same to you.
Got a nice bunch of sheep here. Yeah. Where about, are they all located down there, most of them?
Yeah.
Well, good.
Down there.
Good. Well, the range looks good, too. Well, Steve, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, Joe, adios.
Okay.
Vista la
Hasta la
mañana,
vista. You will see.
Steve and Bob have a new control device to keep game out of this area, designated for sheep and cattle. It's a gun whose ammunition is water.
You ever seen one of these?
And a chemical called calcium carbide. When these elements mix, pressure is built up, causing a loud explosion. These explosions may continue regularly for as long as 24 hours. It's perfectly harmless, but the noise it makes keeps the timid deer far away. In the old days, outlaws rode through this area on their way to the mountain passes, down into secluded valleys with colorful names like Brown's Hole, one of Butch Cassidy's favorite haunts. Not only did this country offer seclusion to bandits and rustlers, but it was close to state lines, over which a criminal on the run could escape pursuers. The ranch families who now live in these remote areas still have to travel as much as 100 miles just to get to the supermarket.
While Dutch John is quite modern in appearance, it takes the Glenn family an hour to get to any real shopping area, 42 miles away in Vernal. But the little town has some very attractive features, which we'll see. We'll visit Flaming Gorge Dam, and we'll take a trip down the rapids of the Green River. We'll do that in just a minute. Linda Glenn and her brothers attend school here in Dutch John. There are only 4 students in Linda's 6th grade class. School only goes through the 6th grade here. The nearest junior high and high schools are 40 miles away. Nearly everybody works for Uncle Sam in Dutch John. and the houses are all decorated with little symbols designating the government agency for which the man of the house works. At the Glenn house, naturally, the symbol is the pine cone of the U.S. Forest Service.
Hi, Linda. How was school?
Fine.
The old American art of putting up preserves and canning fruits and vegetables for winter is not lost in Dutch John. Dorothy Glenn and the other women here try to keep their shopping trips few and far between, since they have to travel so far. To save time, the women of Dutch John often do a good deal of their shopping through catalogs.
There are no movie houses in Dutch John, so the people have to make their own fun to a greater extent than they would in a less remote town. One attraction is the dam itself. Its crest, rising 455 feet above the riverbed, is a ceaseless source of wonder to children and adults alike. The water that flows beneath the dam is extremely cold, since it comes from the bottom of the reservoir, hundreds of feet below the surface. It surges out into the Green River and races down the canyon toward the Uinta Basin. This river, which has cut itself deeply into the mountainside, forms another rather unique local entertainment, a float trip down its swift rapids. We're going along with Bob and Allen Glenn to challenge the white water of the Green River in a rubber life raft.
One of the interesting sensations on the river is hearing the approaching rapids. John Wesley Powell, the explorer, wrote that the Indians believed the route to heaven led down the steep gorges of the Green and Colorado rivers. They warned him against making his first trip, lest he incur the wrath of the gods. The place where Powell first ran the rapids of the Green River now lies beneath the quiet waters of the Flaming Gorge Reservoir. Powell wrote this about that first encounter. All untried as we are with such waters, the moments are filled with intense anxiety. Soon our boats reach the swift current. A stroke or two, now on this side, now on that, and we thread the narrow passage with exhilarating velocity, mounting the high waves whose foaming crests dash over us and plunging into the troughs until we reach the quiet water below. And then comes a feeling of relief.
Red rocks, white water, and blue skies. They're all part of an America too often overlooked as we grapple with the problems of an urban society.
But the inroads of a modern world make it impossible for nature alone to preserve all of this. It's the work of men, like Ranger Bob Glenn, that will keep Flaming Gorge not only a place to enjoy today, but a reminder of our past and an investment in our future. We'll be back in just a minute.
We hope you've enjoyed our visit to the Flaming Gorge country of eastern Utah.
If you'd like to find out more about the history and geology of this region, ask your librarian for these books. A Canyon Voyage by Frederick S. Utah by Allen Carpenter, and this book, Dinosaurs and Other Prehistoric Reptiles by Jane Werner Watson.
Be sure to be with us next week for another exciting program as Discovery continues to discover the world. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This has been a Jules Power production in association with ABC News.